So, welcome to the final session on this last week course, that is we are going to discuss about the future of human resource development, right. So, when we are going to talk about future of human resource development, the idea is see that a lot of changes are happening at the workplace, in the technology, in the economy, in the society, right, everywhere, okay. And new issues are coming up. So, how it is going to change the HRD, the scope of activities that is to be taken by the HRD professionals, what kind of competency would be required in order to deal with these kind of challenges and changes by the HRD professionals, and what they need to do actually, so that they remain viable, right. So, ultimately at the end of this session, in the final session, this is what we are going to discuss in the name of future of human resource development. So, now when we are going to talk about future of human resource development, see there are two things. First, where it is required, okay, and what it does, right. So, if you look at HRD, it is needed everywhere and it has a role in every activity. When you are going to start it, whether you are going to stabilize a business at the time of the growth, or when the organization is facing storms or challenges, right. Because the growth and development of an organization at any stage actually depends upon the people. Okay. So, depending upon the requirement, you have to see that what kind of interventions you need to plan to ensure that at each stage of the organization it is able to do well, and it is going to and the people are able to face challenges of the environment, and then they are able to handle them effectively. So, see, probably we have a misconception that HRD has a role only in the organization, right. HRD has a role everywhere. Okay. So, you are going to move out beyond human resource, the activity of the HRD beyond organizations, and you are also going to include it family, society, government, NGOs, everywhere. So, you can find that the role of the HRD not only limited to the management of the organization, but it could be inculcated in the family. So, you can decide about what is to be done, how it is to be done for the society also, okay, because people actually belong to the society. So, how the quality of life could be improved in addition to their working life, right. You know that government has made a lot of HRD. So, if you look at the national HRD framework, you have to find kind of policies related to education and training that is set up by the government, and what kind of role HRD can play there, right. And similarly, you can also work with the NGOs, okay, that in what way they could be developed and trained, so that they are going to perform effectively for whatever role they have taken up, right. So, these are the two things that we need to talk about. First, HRD can help organizations at different time periods of their growth and life cycle. Similarly, HRD should not be limited only to the management and the organization, but you need to extend it beyond that, and you can inculcate other sectors as well, okay, where you can find your utility, right. So, when we are discussing about the future of human resource development, to start with, first of all we have to go for a analysis, okay, of human resource development. What does it does? What does it have? What are its weaknesses? Especially I am talking about it in Indian context, right. What kind of opportunities are available, where you can extend your activities, and what kind of threats you are facing, right. Now, if you look at the strength, you can see that yes, we have a good knowledge, depth of knowledge, so far as HRD activities, the kind of intervention should be planned, all kind of things. Okay. And India is the first country where you have an integrated HRD system. So, many industries actually initiated this process in the 70s itself, like L&T, right. We have 28 years of history for human resource development, especially in organized form, in organized sector. Okay. And we have lot of activities that is happening in the name of human resource development. Okay. And we have very good and strong professional bodies like National Human Resource Development Network, National Institute of Personnel Management, Indian Society for Training and Development. These are the professional societies which actually work for the growth and development of people, okay, which are very much concerned. You will find that related to human resource development. Okay. There are a lot of good institutions which impart training in the area of human resource management, and the idea of this is that you are going to train good professionals in human resource development. Okay. And you know that many professionals who have been trained have become CEOs of the companies or change agents. So, this is the strength that have been organized, right. Now, if you look at the opportunities, okay, as I told you that HRD should not be limited only to working with the organizations, okay, but you can extend your scope of activities to other sectors as well, society, government, NGOs, in addition to corporates. Okay. And it is always required, because changes are happening everywhere. So, how people are going to cope up with the changes, that is where you are going to contribute. So, you have unlimited opportunities and HRD professionals to contribute to the growth and development of all the sectors, not only the corporates, right. So, we talked about the strength and opportunities that we have in at least our Indian context. Next, we are going to talk about the weaknesses. Okay. So, if you look at these professional bodies, they have not been very active. I mean, they are not working professionally, but they are mission driven, that they have certain objectives and they try to fulfill. Okay. And there is no standard that is maintained by these most of these regulatory bodies, or even there is no regulation also, that who is going to enter into this kind of profession, okay, how are going to maintain the standard of this profession, right. For example, those who work in the area of clinical psychology, there is a body, okay, and that body regulate and maintain the standards of practice, clinical practice. But when it comes to human resource development, we do not have any regulation or maintaining standards. Okay. Some of them have been framed by these organizations, but that is just like a code of conduct, right. And similarly, you will find that CEOs have not been able to identify and use the HRD managers positively and effectively. Okay. And sometimes HRD managers also are not educated, trained enough to make a difference in the organization, because CEOs want them to be change creators, right. CEOs want them to become strategic partners, and probably because of their lack of knowledge and skill, HRD managers have not been able to make a mark on that account. So, there is a talent gap, and you know that we do not have role models in the field of HRD. Okay. He is a person, he is a manager, or is a professional who could be followed up, right. And there is a lot of gap in the theory and practice. What we teach in the name of theory is not being practiced in the organizations. Okay. So, these are some of the weaknesses of human resource development in our country. And then finally, we are going to talk about the threats. Now, if you look at the threats, what are the threats that we have? Okay. How are we going to define the success of the HRD manager? Okay. And you will find that in many companies, you do not have a trained professional HR managers, and then line managers are taking up these activities. Okay. HRD managers are not professionally trained, so they are not competent enough, because this job is being performed by anybody, and you think that HRD can be done by anybody, any managers. Okay. So, you think that HRD is basically for public personal relations, and they should have this kind of attitude. Okay. So, they are not made for public relations, to maintain contact with the outside world. You have a separate public and media relations cell. Okay. HRD is for the growth and development of the people. So, they need to contribute in that way, and that is why with these strength, probably we need to capitalize these strength and find out what kind of opportunities are available, try to overcome our weaknesses and see how these kind of threats can be mitigated, right. So, here what I am trying to do is trying to present you a analysis of the HRD profession, HRD managers, the kind of things that they do, okay. And based on this analysis has been made. Moving further, we have to see that what kind of HRD competencies would be required, so that you are able to overcome those weaknesses, right. Since there are a lot of changes that is happening at the workplace, so HRD practitioners are also being challenged. So, they need to come out with those competencies which is required for them to grow and develop, right. It means that they have to embrace both the change and the ambiguity, which is created by the environment. Okay. In terms of uncertainty, unpredictability, chaos that is happening in the environment. So, they should be aware about what kind of things are happening in the environment and how it is going to impact the organization, okay. And then accordingly decide what kind of interventions or HR strategy they are going to have, right. So, if you look at some of the future trends, right, that we are going to talk about is that customers are replaced by prosumers. So, this is a new term that I came across, okay, who create rather than simply consume goods and services. Okay. Now, you will be asking question, what do you mean by prosumers? Prosumers means you are acting as producers as well as consumers both at the same times. Okay. For example, media, you are producing and then you are consuming. Okay. So, you co-create rather than simply consume goods and services. Okay. So, you are not only to be customers of the product, but you are also going to produce certain things. Okay. Then globality, which is going to characterize global markets, because we are going to compete in a global market, okay, with everyone from everywhere and for everything, right. So, and that requires a creation of a new mindset, okay, which embraces profit and competition along with sustainability and collaboration, right. So, you need to train managers in such a way, so that they are able to face these kind of challenges, and also need to create a mindset, so that they are able to do these things with keeping in mind this sustainability and how they are going to collaborate with others to ensure that they are going to succeed in a competitive market, right. Look at other future trends. Okay. Now, we are going to live in a community which is connected through web, right, web enabled community, okay, and which focuses more on innovation and growth or wealth creation, including social development. Okay. So, if that is happening, it means that you have to be proactive with social media, you find out what they are thinking about, right, and then you also need to create a service oriented architecture, SOA. It means you need to design, deploy software which is going to support business activities everywhere, anytime, right, and then you are going to look at everything. Okay. So, you are going to basically design businesses or activities like software components that can be easily put together and taken apart whenever it is required. So, and that kind of socially oriented architecture, service oriented architecture has to be designed by the HR managers, so that they could better connect through all kind of media, right, including social media, or where you are going to have communities which is well connected with the internet and these kind of things. Okay. Another trend, okay, wiki. Most of you might have been looking at references using these kind of things, right, where we are going to collaborate on a mass basis across boundaries and geographies. Okay. So, earlier you used to have corporate structures based on hierarchies and control. Now, you are going to have structures which could be networked, the hybrid, or even virtual networks. You can have virtual structures, okay, where people are going to work from different places, geographies, cultures, countries, okay, living at different places, connected through internet and these kind of things. So, this kind of business web where clusters of business which are coming together at the internet to create wealth. So, this kind of basically you are trying to create a new kind of enterprise. So, what kind of collaboration would be required and what kind of things can be done by HRD to ensure that they are succeeding is another important thing, right. Moving next, multi unit enterprises, they are growing very fast. Organizations are moving across boundaries, geographies. Okay. So, you have branches, service centers, restaurants, stores, everything, and then aggregating into larger geographic units based on districts, regions or divisions. Okay. That is one thing. Second is social and environmental entrepreneurs. Probably earlier we used to have business entrepreneurs. Now, we have social entrepreneurs who work for the cause of the society, right. They try to do something or try to create or innovate something which is going to help society, right. So, it is a new perspective on value creation. Okay. So, how are we going to tackle those things or issues that is going to be there related to the people, right. So, what kind of problems they are going to face, what kind of solutions you are going to provide them when it comes to risk or managing these kind of systems, right. So, this is going to create new challenges for the HR people. So, HRD has implications for these kind of future trends, right. You have to actually integrate the learning need of the prosumers, that is producers and consumers, into the organization's HRD strategy. You have to develop and improve learning and development processes to develop retain and talented employees. It means that you need to look at this learnability of the employees, okay, and you go for collaborative activities for innovation projects, okay. And you also see that what kind of inter-organizational and inter-government collaborative work can be facilitated by the HRD activities, right. So, we have seen that what the trends now we are discussing about what needs to be done by the HRD people, right. So, they have to understand how technology can be used to sustain competitive advantage. So, they need to develop the capability, collaborative capabilities, so the organizations are going to work together, okay, through online collaborations using technology as a vehicle of learning, okay, and having a knowledge management system for transfer of the knowledge, right. Moving next is they also need to develop employee competence, especially entrepreneurial abilities like risk taking and these kind of things. They also need to see that employees develop their competencies related to creativity and innovation. Okay. If you really want to develop entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, environmental entrepreneurs apart from business entrepreneurs, okay, then you have to see that what kind of competence would be required, right. Similarly, you also need to design, development and review HRD interventions, which is aimed at value creation. How? Improvements in social health and education environment. It means that you are going to ensure that your HRD interventions is going to create ethically and socially responsible organization, which takes care of its community, society and environment. That is very, very important. And finally, you are going to support organization design processes. You are going to design, restructure or redesign certain processes of the organization which facilitate these kind of activities. So, you can go for changing the structure of the organization, right. You can go for changing the business processes of the organization, you go for changing the culture and systems of the organization, right. So, the processes of the organization need to be redesigned to facilitate these activities. So, that people are trained in being creative and innovative, and you are going to design your HRD systems in such a way, so that it is going to create value for everybody, not only for the organization stakeholders. You remember we talked about shareholders theory and stakeholders theory. Okay. So, organization can work in a ethically and socially responsible manner only when it takes care of all the stakeholders in the process. So, HRD has to think beyond profit maximization agenda of the organization and move further to include these kind of agenda in their activities, and then accordingly they need to design interventions, so that these agenda could be taken up, and there are improvements on these accounts, right. Moving further, if you look at how we are going to integrate these factors into HRD, right, and how they are going to affect HRD activities. Now, there are three things. If you look at this, and at the center is human resource development activities. Now, when we are going to talk about human resource development, it means designing learning interventions or other interventions as well. It is going to be influenced by three things, and you need to integrate these internal factors in designing the HRD interventions. Okay. And what is the area where they are going to do it? See, now if you look at strategy and structure, right, the structure of an organization follows the strategy that you have adopted, right, because your strategy has to be dependent upon the structure strategy. So, when we are talking about a strategy, it means it has to be guided by your vision, mission and what kind of objectives you have, and accordingly you develop your strategy, which is followed by designing a structure which facilitates growth and development, right. On the other side, you also need to develop or create a culture, and you remember we talked about creating a learning culture in the organization. Okay. So, when you are going to create a learning culture, accordingly you need to see that what kind of values, beliefs and assumptions are developed by the people related to the organizations, what kind of norms they have, okay, and how intense these norms are there, because this is going to decide your behavior. Third is your human resource strategy. So, when you are going to look at human resource strategy, you have to look at what kind of policies, practices you adopt to make people happy and satisfied, right. And since HRD is a part of HRM broadly speaking, and it is going to be not only going to be influenced by the kind of systems and policies you are going to have, but also affected by the strategy and structure and the culture, because strategy and culture is going to identify your behavior and actions. Okay. While integration of strategy and HR is going to see your communication and information, how you communicate these things to the people and what kind of policy and system is going to support it. Then culture and HRM is going to decide about what? That is about your leadership style and the systems and practices of the management. So, if you look at this, you will find that all these factors are going to influence the way you are going to design and develop your HRD interventions, right. Why it is important? Because it is linked with the strategy HRM, because being a part of it, and you need to create a culture of continuous learning and development, okay, so that these kind of practices are sustainable in nature and people are continuously ready to face the challenges of the external environment, which is constantly changing. You remember when we were talking about what kind of competencies people require to face the challenges of the change. So, you should be able to see that it is able to address or try to facilitate people through learning and development activities, so that they are able to reach the goals and objectives of the business. Okay. At the same time, you also have systems and practices to make them happy and satisfied, because they are contributing to the goals and objectives of the organization. And similarly, you also make sure that you have an enabling culture, which facilitates these kind of activities in the organization, right. And that is why we try to link it here and see how it is influenced. So, what are the challenges basically for the HRD practitioners? You need to adopt a leadership role. So, you need to act as a strategic business partner. You also need to act as a catalyst for social change, apart from bringing about change in the organization's performance. Okay. You also need to ensure that the performance management system is totally transformed. Okay. It is aligned with the goals and objectives of the organization. So, individual and organizational goals are aligned together, right. Make sure that HRD interventions add value in monetary terms and both in non-monetary terms as well. One of your objective could be also to build intellectual capital, okay, which not only include human capital, but other forms of capital. You remember we talked about that in the last week, right. Similarly, you also make sure that your people are ready and trained in such a way, so that they go for innovations of products, services and systems, right. Go for bringing about a change in the design of the organizations and support all kind of practices, whether it is formal or informal, okay, in the organization. And that is how you are going to participate and contribute to the growth and development of organizations in future, so that they can compete in a changing environment, right. So, what are the challenges basically? Look at this, basically what we have been talking about, all of them are creating a challenge for the organization, whether it is adopting a leadership style or acting as a social change agent or transforming the system performance management system, or designing HR interventions to add value, okay, or trying to build up intellectual capital, which may consist of a number of capitals, or innovating new product services and processes, or changing about the design or supporting learning through formal and informal processes. All this is going to create challenges for the HRD practitioners in the future, right. Okay. So, what would be the role of the HR? Creating synergy, building teams, creating culture, managing performance. No more system developer, systems will be outsourced. So, you need to see that what needs to be done, okay. And that is where you are going to visualize your role as a future HRD manager, right. Now, moving to the next slide, here we are going to discuss that yes, as a future HR manager, what are the competencies that would be required for you. In a nutshell, you need to act as a strategic thinker, and when we say that you are going to act as a strategic thinker, it means that you need to act as a strategic business partner, means that you should be able to align the goals and objectives of the HRD with the goals and objectives of the organization to see that how it contributes in better organizational performance. You act as a leader, okay, in deciding what is to be done. Then as an entrepreneur, okay, it means you need to create and innovate new things and processes, systems and processes, right. You must be familiar with the technology, so that you can plan interventions accordingly, and then you need to benchmark your systems and practices with the best in the world. You go for global benchmarking and see whether you are going to meet those benchmarks or not in terms of adopting systems and practices which are adopted by the best company, but at the same time you also keep the local factors, the cultural factors in the mind, and accordingly you devise your systems and practices. Then you take initiative, because most of the cases it has been found that HRD managers are, when they are asked to do something, then they do. You initiate what needs to be done for the organization, and you should be able to visualize the future of the organization, and accordingly you see that what kind of competencies, what would be required by the people. So, ultimately you are going to act as a all rounder, a researcher, and also a behavior systems creator. It means that you are going to create or bring about a change in the behavior on a regular basis, so that people are able to compete, right. So, we have discussed about what could be the future role of HR managers, and finally, we are going to sum it up now. So, thank you very much for this, and I hope that you have enjoyed this course properly, and if you need any reading material, or if you require anything, that you can mail me, and we will also provide a lot of reading material supplement whatever through video and the PPTs, right. So, if you have any course, you can write to me, and please do provide your feedback. Okay. Thank you very much.